Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're here for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream, but this time around it's going to be all about graphics cards. So I'm very excited to be able to go ahead and touch on these brand new graphics cards. I know a lot of people have been waiting for the next generation of cards, and we're finally able to go ahead and talk about them in this brand new first look preview on our latest generation ASUS ROG Strix 40 series cards, as well as ASUS TUF Gaming 40 series base graphics cards. Let's see who we have joining us here on the stream today. It looks like we've got quite a number of people in there. We've got David. Happy to have you here on the stream. Thanks so much for joining us. Pidgey PCs, it's always great to have you here. We've got Paul joining us as well. Very, very cool. Michael joining us here on the stream. Auntie PHA, thanks so much. Appreciate the love there in terms of ASUS #1. Happy to have you here. Hey, Cameron Powers, fantastic to have you here. Mr. Matt Lee, one of the absolute best photographers out there when it comes to PCDIY builds. Happy to have you here, man. Thanks so much for joining us. And Sue Min also joining us here on the stream. Fantastic. Wow. And all the way from Argentina. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We've got a lot to dive into. So the first thing that I want to be able to go ahead and touch on is that this is just a first look preview. So we're going to be able to go ahead and give you, of course, a little bit of a crash course in terms of getting all up to date in regards to the new ID designs that we're introducing this new generation, along with some additional information regarding the brand new thermal solution that we've gone ahead and integrated for our ROG Strix and our TUF Gaming series cards. We'll help you to understand a little bit of some of the compare and contrast and upgrades that we've got for this generation compared to the prior generation, and overall kind of help you to just have a little bit more of a complete understanding in terms of some of the considerations you're going to have when you're looking to maybe update your build, as well as some additional data points in terms of things like PCI power cables that might be supported for some of our power supplies that we'll have if you want to be able to, of course, make sure that you've got a power supply that can work with these GPUs, as well as a couple other points. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the comment section. I'll do my best to go ahead and respond to them when I can, but do keep in mind anything relative to performance embargo or kind of some of the performance metrics, we can't talk about that, but rest assured, of course, once the embargo lifts, we'll have a full live stream that will dive into actually all the normal kind of things that I dive into, including things like expected GPU boost clocks, power target information, all kinds of other variables that relate to kind of GPU centric designs. But this time around, we're just going to be focusing on the overall kind of first look elements of these cards. So let's get ready to go ahead and jump straight into it. So I think probably just kick this off. I think we're going to go straight to it. Of course, if you guys are part of our PCDIY group, you've already seen the posts in terms that I went ahead and put in there. And if you guys are not part of our group, make sure to go ahead and join it. So let's go ahead and just start right off with taking a closer look at these 40 series cards. So we're going to first go ahead and take a look at the ROG Strix 4090, but we're also going to go ahead and take a closer look at the the TUF Gaming RTX 4090. So I'm going to go ahead and put these cards side by side just so we can go ahead and initially take a kind of an assessment in terms of their overall design, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time to kind of first break down the ROG Strix card, and then we'll dive into the TUF Gaming based graphics card. So let's go ahead and first go ahead and take a look here at the ROG Strix and the TUF Gaming graphics cards side by side. So let's go ahead and bring it up. There we go. So we can actually see right here, we've got the graphics cards. Let me reorder that just a little bit. Maybe see if that makes it a little bit cleaner for you guys in terms of taking a look at. So you can see this is the horizontal kind of view. This is the normal expected view in terms of how you would install your graphics card. And you're going to see right off the bat that the ID styling is quite a bit different than what we had in our prior 30 series generation. TUF Gaming, I'd say, is a little bit more of an evolved kind of design, a refined design, similar in terms of some design elements, but definitely still is different. But with ROG Strix, definitely there's a departure from our 30 series design, and part of that was, I think, wanting to not only ensure that we could meet the actual criteria of the kind of the thermal dissipation requirements that you would have for these next generation GPUs, but also, of course, just at looking to evolve the overall design aesthetic. And interestingly enough, we had actually a lot of people in the prior generation, and I think for a couple of generations, that have really liked the Founders Edition cards, which take a little bit more of a symmetrical type of design, where our cards have generally not necessarily always had a symmetrical type design. So here I think we kind of took upon the approach of looking at how we could have a symmetrical based kind of design philosophy while also kind of complementing the large mass heatsink assembly that we have here. And that's definitely what you're going to see is going to be apparent within the cards. Now, taking a closer look, we're going to dive a little bit more closely into elements like the actual frame, which is a die-cast based material. So this is actually all metal on both of these cards. You're going to have also metal that's going to be present on here, and we'll dive into kind of all the other design elements. But just on immediate face value, wanted to kind of give you just that first perspective in terms of what we're looking at from the card. So let's go ahead and pull back out in terms of the TUF Gaming card. focus it on the ROG Strix card, and we'll dive into some of the specifics. And feel free, again, if you've got questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in there. So as we take a look at the card, the first thing is going to be that this is going to be a 3.5 slot based card. So that's going to be the actual, of course, the amount of space that's going to occupy when you install this on a motherboard is 3.5 slots, right? You're also going to be looking at about the 357 millimeters in terms of length. That definitely means that that's going to be pretty large in terms of the overall length that's going to equip itself in terms of a graphics card, but that will still comfortably fit in actually any of our, let's say, current chassis. So if you have something like a Helios, if you have a you have a GT501 or you have a GT502, you'll have those fit without any issues in there. And if you're wondering about that, that's roughly, I think, about 14 inches in terms of the overall dimensions that you're going to have in terms of the graphics card. Okay. So if we now go ahead, just move a little bit over and kind of continue some of the design element, let's take a look at it here in the kind of more vertical orientation, right? And so you're going to definitely see here that metal die-cast shroud, right? Which I think is going to be one of the big changes that we had compared to the prior generation. Prior generation, it was a mixed polymer-based material. It was still really nice, but I definitely know some people kind of appreciate that metal composite-based material or a full metal-based material utilization. And so here, having that not only adds to the rigidity and the heft of the card, but definitely to the premium kind of design elements that you'll feature on the card. You'll also see that there's a big change here in terms of having kind of these little bit of more smooth edges, right? That you're going to see almost like a chamfer type of edge design, which I think looks really clean. It's really nice that, again, if we go back to the side profile of the card, you see how it has a little bit of a rounded lip, which I really like that overall clean kind of symmetrical vibe to it. But it doesn't necessarily end in a box, right? With the box, you would have a very kind of pointed a point to each one of these corners, and you actually don't have any points here. They're nice, kind of smooth and rounded, which I really feel it's subtle, but visually when you're looking at it, I think it definitely lends it a nice feel. Now, we'll definitely see, of course, that one of the other big design elements here is going to be the implementation of the lighting system, right? In the prior generation, we had a full addressable RGB light bar, and now we've got an ARGB light bar that is subset down here in the bottom right-hand side, and then there's actually a 4-zone lighting system. The cool thing about the 4-zone lighting system here, right, is that you've got one zone here, another zone here, another one there on the back, and then one that actually runs to the bottom. And so that means actually it doesn't matter where you orientate the card, you're going to actually have this really kind of nice, clean, consistent RGB strip that's going to be visible. With the prior generation, I'd say that it definitely favored the horizontal, and we did design the card to where you had a little bit of what's called backfill illumination. So we had the actual RGB LEDs have a little bit of kind of drop lighting that would exist right here towards the fans, but I really like this type of design. And again, it's a little bit more of a refined, subtle-based implementation. You also see, of course, that very kind of different design here at having a little bit more of a bold color scheme there that's going to be in the front of the card, right? Now, as we move towards the back of the card, you're going to see that the really big upgrade here is going to be a vented based design. This is going to be actually a high quality aluminum based backplate that's going to be present on here. So again, it's kind of working in coordination with the entirety of the die cast shroud to really be able to give you a good level of rigidity and a really nice kind of overall fit and finish when it comes to the overall card's experience. So really nice base design. So again, remembering kind of going here from the front. As we're moving over to the back, this is the die-cast based metal, and then we move over here into an aluminum based backplate that we have on the card. Okay. Now, on the inside of the card, which is a little bit more challenging to kind of see, but if we go ahead and take a look right here, is you'll see that there's a massive heatsink assembly that we have in here. And so the heatsink assembly is something that we really pride ourselves in terms of at ASUS, where we spent a lot of time to really be able to look at how we could offer a really high level of performance and still be able to maintain kind of the targets that we want in terms of temperature as well as acoustics. And we definitely feel that we've been able to achieve that through a combination of a number of different factors. One, in terms of the actual heatsink design, and then overall the fan solution, and then overall kind of bringing that all together. So the really cool part here is that this is going to be utilizing a vapor chamber. It's actually a patented vapor chamber based design that we have. I have a cool little kind of reference image to show you how we've implemented the vapor chamber compared to a traditional design. And we're also still utilizing heat pipes here. So we bring high performance heat pipes. There's 7 heat pipes here that work in conjunction with the vapor chamber plate. And then that of course works with the 3 Axle-Tech fans that we have on the card. So let's go ahead and take a look here actually at that vapor chamber based design. So bring that up right there. And so here you'll actually see a little bit of a horizontal view in terms of what that vapor chamber design looks like. So the vapor chamber right here That's actually what is making direct contact. It still utilizes our advanced max contact technology in terms of what we've pioneered in the past on our prior graphics cards. And then we've evolved that now with that vapor chamber plate. And then we've evolved right here this new type of design implementation. And so this essentially gives us essentially a much higher level of performance that we have by utilizing this design. And this will be an exclusive attribute on the ROG Strix card. So some people are always kind of starting to wonder about where are the differences between an ROG Strix card and a TUF Gaming graphics card. The TUF Gaming graphics card will have a very high performance based thermal solution design, and it will also feature a vapor chamber, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but it will not feature this new patented design implementation. This is going to be reserved specifically for, of course, our flagship card, which is going to be the ROG Strix series. Okay. Before I go ahead and jump into some of the additional points, I'm just going to quickly see if we've got any questions that might have kind of come up in on that side of the fence, and we'll definitely keep moving things along here. But let me just see if we've had any things that might have come up in right there. Let me see. So Michael's giving us a very cool design. I would definitely agree. I think it is a very cool design implementation. Somebody's asking about the memory configuration. So when we're talking right now about the highest end GPU, so this is going to be the 4090 that we're initially talking about, you're going to be talking about the highest memory density configuration. So that's going to be 24 gigabytes. As we move into the 4080 base models, then you're going to have a different memory configuration. That would be either 16 gigabytes or the 12 gigabytes. So we'll talk about the 4080 at the end, but a lot of the design attributes that we're going to be talking about will be consistent between the 4090 and the 4080. But I will call out some of the dimensional differences, such as they'll maybe be a little bit more compact in terms of their overall length, and they'll have a different slot profile. There also maybe be a little bit of a difference in terms of some of the design elements, but overall they'll be fairly similar in that regard. Okay. Let me see right here. So Matt's giving us a little bit. It's, yeah, the design looks totally refined and stylized. The huge French-facing heatsink and vents look amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. I definitely think that the ID team has done a fantastic job to really be able to pull together a very, very cool design aesthetic. So let's go ahead and keep moving this along in terms of the overall kind of little guided tour that we've got here in terms of the card. So again, the big thing here on this card, and specifically on the 4090, again, that will differentiate itself to a large degree outside of the design styling for the TUF Gaming graphics card between the ROG Strix card will be this new patented vapor chamber based design implementation with the 7 heat pipes. Okay, so that is going to be a difference there. Okay. Now, when we take a look here at the back as well, you're going to see that the card has a very large, massive vented backplate, right? And so this directly works, of course, along with the thermal solution, and then also along with the 3 enlarged, thicker, higher performing fans that we've implemented for this generation. So this just helps to maximize the overall airflow configuration that we have here to really be able to make sure that you get a great experience. And again, the target always with an ASUS graphics card, especially in our kind of high performance based cards like TUF Gaming graphics cards and ROG Strix cards, is to be cooler, quieter, and faster, and built to a very high degree in terms of the overall quality. And you can definitely feel confident in that regard. I also think that this design looks really, really cool. So, you know, sometimes I think people are always like, I wish the kind of the back looked a little bit cooler. I do think that this design even looks a little bit better than our last generation. I know some people were hoping to maybe see an RGB implementation, and that's definitely something that we've discussed with our team. And as always, you know, we just let you know, make sure to keep it tuned there for the future, right? So that is going to be the back of the card. Now, moving back over to the front of the card, if we take a look here, these fans right here, these are all essentially upgraded from the prior generation. So these are going to be larger, they're going to be thicker, and they're going to have higher performance. We still maintain what we call as the ring barrier design. The ring barrier design, along with the thicker and the larger fans that we have here, help to ultimately improve performance. All right, so we're essentially increasing airflow, we're increasing static pressure, actually by a notable level. And that's, again, kind of working all in coordination. So it's not just one area that we looked at in terms of improving. You know, it was everything from the heatsink assembly to the actual vapor chamber design, to the overall backplate design, right, to the fans, all of those things working together to be able to provide a superior experience, right? Now, continuing here in terms of some of the other cool items that this card has, this will still maintain the same functionality that we've had now for a couple of generations, which is going to be the fan connect to headers, which I think is a really cool feature, and sometimes it's actually been overlooked. You'll also continue to see that really cool 4-zone RGB lighting design that's on the Strix graphics card, and you can see how it goes through the entirety of the card. And again, I think it has a really cool design aesthetic to it, and I'm really looking forward to kind of see how that actually lays out within a system build. But right here, this is what I'm referring to, which is going to be the fan connect 2 headers. Those headers, of course, allow you to go ahead and connect maybe like your chassis fans to the graphics card, and you could have those fans respond to the GPU input in terms of the GPU temperature. Or if you just wanted more flexibility to be able to have more fans running, right? You don't necessarily have to go out to a secondary controller or to another splitter. You could run them from the graphics card. So that is a really cool feature that is still maintained on our ROG Strix series. Another cool design element that sometimes some people aren't aware about is what are these little guys right here? And those are actually integrated bracing points. And so the cool thing actually about those bracing points is that in some chassis you can actually get a bracing mechanism, a bracket, and the bracket can actually run directly in line with the chassis and help to stabilize the graphics card. So while the cards themselves, the overall rigidity of the graphics card is very high, there's an internal kind of anti-torsion frame to the card, and we feel very comfortable and confident, and the cards actually will even include an anti-sag bracket. This is another mechanism that you have so that if you don't maybe want to use something like what I've got right here, like the Herculex or the ring wall or the included anti-sag bracket, you can actually use this post right here to be able to actually brace the card. So that is another option that you have available to you. Okay. So it's a very cool kind of design implementation that we've got right there. All right. Now circling back here, right to the card, you can also see if we get a little bit tight in right here, the card will still maintain, of course, our P mode and Q mode. So this was something kind of we innovated a long time ago, and it's now become almost an industry standard amongst many manufacturers. But we still continue to offer it as a great kind of easy way to be able to flexibly tune the graphics card without you having to control anything within a software-based interface. So we'll get more into the details at the launch, exactly how the P and the Q mode are kind of implemented. But pretty much the kind of the rule of thumb is that if you're looking for the quietest level of operation under a gaming load experience, you can shift into the Q mode. Although keep in mind, for many gamers, they actually run these cards in P mode and still really have a very cool and quiet experience. So it's not necessarily that you have to shift it into the Q mode to be able to get a quieter experience. It's just being able to take it to a further degree. And we notice this is sometimes beneficial for some users that are really critical when it comes to kind of the noise that's coming from their system. Or maybe you might have something like this where you've got your system very close to you, and so you're just even a little bit more sensitive, right? But do also keep in mind that in relation to the fans, right, these cards still do maintain our 0 dB operating mode. So that means under light loading, right, when the graphics card is not heavily loaded and it's not consuming a large amount of power, these fans will not even spin. So you still essentially get a card that's effectively near silent in terms of its overall operation, right? So you've got that flexibility of adjusting that dual V BIOS, and you also still maintain the 0 dB operating mode, right? All right, so that overall wraps up, I think, overall the kind of the introduction there for the ROG Strix 4090 base graphics card. So we're going to get ready here to dive into the TUF Gaming 4090 variant. And again, we'll kind of put these side by side so that you can go ahead and compare the two. Before I go ahead and do that, though, I do want to go ahead and just see if we've got any other kind of questions that I may be able to get into for the TUF Gaming graphics card, for the ROG Strix based graphics card. So let me go ahead and just readjust this, make sure that I can pull up my TUF Gaming graphics card. And again, we'll show those two side by side just one more time for a reference if anybody wants to see those. So give me 1 second here. All right. Michael's asking, when will the product pages be live? So right now we have some general kind of information that's up on the ASUS ROG website, and we'll continue to have more information as we get closer to the launch embargo date. So just continue to kind of watch that, and you can be notified. Right now, if you do actually go to the ASUS ROG page, the ASUS ROG page will actually give you an option for text notification, which will help you to kind of be kept up to date as soon as more information is made available in that regard, okay? So this is an entirely different question, but somebody's asking about just for next generation x670 boards, how old of a card can you run in the PCI slot? It doesn't matter. You can run a 20 series, a 10 series based graphics card, and you wouldn't have any issues. Really, the only limiting factor is that you would want to make sure that the card officially supports a UEFI based VBIOS, but pretty much all recent generation cards going back for multiple generations, even before the 1000 series, officially support a UEFI VBIOS. So you should not have any issues installing those graphics cards until you decide to maybe upgrade to one of these graphics cards. So no worries in that regard. Okay. Let me go ahead and just see if we've got any other quick questions that are might have popped up in there. Crazy Beatrice is asking I wonder what the P and the Q stand for. That's essentially performance or quiet, right? That's how we have broke that down in the past, right? Brandon Potter is saying RIP to any non-ATX based build. So these are definitely going to be large graphics cards. I would say that for some people that are looking for a smaller, maybe form factor based build, they might want to still maybe evaluate the 4080 based graphics cards. When we get into those, dimensionally, some of those may still be able to work. Like, so we have an AP201 chassis, which is a micro ATX based chassis, which can support up to 338 millimeters. So you could actually still put a 4080 in there. You could fit one of those graphics cards, but definitely these cards are going to really be focused at users that I would say have, a reasonably large enough, mid tower to, of course, a full tower based configuration, right? Let me just go ahead and see if there's any other questions. Sorry, Henry, no pricing information we're going to disclose at this time. That'll be released when we get closer to, of course, the launch. So make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned in that regard. Mr. Matt saying do you have any pictures of the anti-sag bracket that will be bolted? Ooh, let me check. I'll wait. I don't want to tie too much in time to that, but I think I might still have it from the reference from the 30 series, because that's not a new feature. We actually had that also on the 30 series graphics cards, but I almost never saw anybody use it. But I can show you what that actual bracket looks like. It's a really clean type of design. If actually, I almost prefer it for some people that if you don't want anything underneath the graphics card, but you don't want to have any sag, using that rear bolting based mechanism, it's a really, really nice way. So let's get ready to go ahead and jump into the TUF Gaming graphics card here, and we will keep moving things along. And again, if anybody has any questions, if I missed them, feel free to go ahead and just drop them in there. I'll do my best to go ahead and get to it when I can. All right, so again, here we've got the ROG Strix 4090 on this side, and here we've got now the TUF Gaming 4090 on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and now pop off the ROG Strix, and we're gonna focus in on the TUF Gaming. All right. So for the TUF Gaming 4090, we're going to see that definitely this is going to be a little bit different in terms of the overall dimensions. It's actually a little bit bigger than the ROG Strix card. So with the ROG Strix card, we were looking at 3.5 slot. This is actually a 3.65 slot based graphics card, but it is actually going to be a little bit different in terms of the overall length of the graphics card. So where the ROG Strix graphics card was 357 millimeters, this is going to be 348 millimeters. So technically, it's a little bit larger, right, in terms of the overall amount of slots it's going to be occupy, but it's a little bit shorter. So in that regard, can potentially be beneficial. But again, if we talk about for reference, let me go ahead and I think I have a couple of chassis up here just for reference. If we bring up some of our chassis, you want to take a look at kind of the dimensions. If we bring up just for kind of reference here, here's our GT501. So this is great, very flexible chassis. You can actually find out that this has got tons of room. So if we go over here, let's see, GPU length support, you can see it's 420. So we're significantly under what that would be, right? And then here's the GT502, which is, of course, our new split chamber based chassis design. It would easily also fit inside of the GT502. There wouldn't be any issues in that regard. If we take a look here at the Helios you can see supports up to 450 millimeters. So again, it would fit there. And as I noted, even here is the AP201. The AP201, it wouldn't fit this 4090, but if you wanted to be able to go ahead and fit in a 4080, there would be a 4080 SKU that could fit in there where we have 308 millimeters. So again, that is how you want to be able to cross-check your specifications. So if you do have a different chassis, just make sure to go ahead and check under the tech specs of your chassis to verify its actual length for its graphics card, okay? So let's go ahead and head back over here again to the graphics card. So we'll see one of the really big things is we maintained, of course, having a very premium die-cast based shroud here. So it's got that nice metal feel to it, but there is additional kind of rigidity and stability that's been integrated here where we have kind of a rib stabilizing system. So you see right here, this actually directly connects also in through the PCB and then also into the backplate. And so this gives the card a really stable feel. Again, this helps to reduce also torsion, improve overall rigidity, and overall just gives you a better experience when it comes to the kind of the fitment when it's installed inside of a chassis. So a really, really nice touch in that regard, okay? But again, keep in mind that this is 3.65 slot and this is going to be 348 millimeters long in terms of that, okay? So in terms of the overall cooling solution that we have here, right, this card is going to be a little bit different. This one will be featuring a vapor chamber cooling design with 8 heat pipes. So still a very high performance based cooling design that you're going to have here in terms of the overall heatsink assembly, right, along with the same improved fans. The fans that are also on this card are going to be the higher performing, thicker, larger fans, right, with improved airflow, improved static pressure performance. So you're going to get essentially those upgrades across the board. And so just like we saw within the 30 series, the TUF Gaming graphics cards are going to offer really great performance when you talk about, you know, under gaming experience. And again, we'll definitely talk more about the kind of the complete gaming experience, including performance tuning and things along those lines when we get into the launch live stream once the embargo is lifted for these cards. But that is where there, again, is going to be a differential between the two graphics cards, where the Strix card will feature the patented vapor chamber based design, right, with a different heat pipe configuration, but because it has that integrated kind of design that helps to maximize its overall efficiency and its performance, it's going to actually be a higher level of thermal dissipation performance than even the TUF Gaming the TUF Gaming based graphics card, right? On the ID design, right, you can also see here that the card does have a little bit of a change in terms of its overall RGB lighting design. So this is actually, we went to a what we call 3D as opposed to a 2D. So you'll actually see that there's a little bit of a kind of depth to it. It's a little bit tighter. It's almost like seems like embossed. And so it still maintains that really nice kind of clean lighting design where it's visible either horizontally or vertically, but it's very subtle. And of course, if you don't like the lighting, you can turn it off or you can change it to whatever color you want. It's RGB lighting, so it's entirely up to you, just like it is on the Strix graphics card, right? There's no difference in that regard, right? So again, those larger, thicker axial tech fans, again, also here with the ring barrier based design. As we move over here into the back, you're going to see that you have, again, also a high quality vented backplate design. You'll see it's a huge vented backplate design, again, very similar to what we have on the ROG Strix card, really with the focus, again, of maximizing overall airflow and the overall cooling performance based for the graphics card. I really also like the TUF iconography, or what we call our vector design language. I think it looks really cool, where you've got kind of the TUF Gaming accents that are on here, and then you can actually see the TUF Gaming logo that's kind of split between one part right here on the back plate, and then it's of course cut out right there. And I think it's kind of a cool little accent that's just present there that adds a little bit of styling, right? Dual V BIOS is also still on this card, so you can see performance mode and quiet mode. You still have that same level of functionality that will be afforded to you. This card will also maintain supporting the 0 dB operating mode. So these fans, again, when the card is under a light gaming load, or it's under a light mode in general. So, you know, you're watching a YouTube video, you're just reading an email, right? You're checking out something on Reddit, whatever it might be, that it's not consuming a large amount of power from the graphics card, then those fans will not even spin. And again, you're going to effectively get a card that's going to be near silent in terms of its overall operation, right? So that overall pretty much wraps almost up the kind of the entirety of the overall kind of design that we have here for the TUF Gaming 40 series. I will note I can't get into all the complete specifics for this version, but this card will also feature a little slightly different power topology. So as always, when we talk about kind of ROG Strix to TUF Gaming, the TUF Gaming series will feature a very high performance based VRM power topology design, but the ROG Strix will actually have a higher performing VRM power topology design. So we'll get into those kind of technical specification differences in the future, but the ROG Strix will have a 24+4 base power solution design, and here you're going to have a 20+4. So still extremely high performance base power design, right? And again, we kind of evaluate our overall kind of power design philosophy to be holistic, right? So it's not just the number of power components that are on there, but it's overall everything from the PCB to those components to the thermal solution, all of that working together, even along with the programmed clock speeds to be able to define kind of the experience you're going to have with your card, right? So that is going to kind of recap those two. The next part here that I wanted to touch on is going to be in our auto extreme production process, which is going to be consistent with all of the graphics cards. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring up a little video right here to be able to show you guys exactly what the auto extreme kind of production process is, if you're not aware of it. And I'm also going to jump back here into the chat and just see if anybody's got any questions regarding the kind of the auto extreme production process, or any of the things that I've gone ahead and also detailed already. So give me 1 second here to just bring up our clip here. All right, so this is the actual auto extreme production process. You can actually check out the full video that we have on our ASUS YouTube channel. But pretty much what it is we're utilizing an advanced SMT production process. So we were actually the first manufacturer to unilaterally put this in terms of the design and development of our graphics cards from top to bottom. So the great thing is, regardless if you're buying a 40 series based graphics card, or if you were buying a 30 series based graphics card, or if you were buying an AMD enabled based graphics card, any one of our graphics cards from our entry to our highest end are all produced using this kind of industry leading production process. And we also kind of combine this with are what we refer to as our super alloy power initiative, which is the actual power components that we pick per each GPU design, right? So different GPUs are going to require different levels of power design requirements, but regardless of that, we're definitely always evaluating the overall process, right, to be able to ensure that we can really help to ensure not only stable and reliable operation, but a very high performance based experience, right? And so that's what the auto extreme production process is all about. And here you can actually see how the process works, everything from, like I said, the PCB, all the power components you're going on there, to the actual validation of the cards. And so that is a really great kind of overall level of confidence that I think you can have, that outside of all the really cool elements in terms of, you know, the thermal solution, the power componentry, right, the pre-programmed clocks, the cool aesthetic design, right, I feel that kind of brings it all together to be able to kind of just give you a great experience when you get your card. So let's go ahead and just see here what other questions we might have had that kind of popped up right there. Let's see. Last independent thinker is noting, if these cards get any bigger, we'll need bigger cases. As I noted, I don't really see that as being an issue, because as I noted, if you take a look at, you know, current chassis that we have right now, and many of the most popular chassis that are on the market, they actually, most chassis are generally going to be between somewhere about 380 millimeters to 428 millimeters. So there's no need for new chassis. Chassis can actually readily support the actual dimensions of the current cards that we already have. So no issues in that regard. So that's actually a great question. So Brandon's actually asking here, before I get into the 4080 base cards, is saying, will the new GPUs come with an adapter? So we actually will be shipping all of the GPUs. They will come included with the adapter. So if you guys notice, again, let me go ahead and just bring up the graphics card here for reference. So if we go ahead and bring up here our Strix based graphics card, right? Give me 1 second here. When you take a look at the card, you'll notice that the card does, of course, utilize a different PCIe, right? This is kind of the quote-unquote PCI Gen 5 Power Express connector, right? Which has a much higher power envelope that can be supplied directly to the graphics card. In the past, you would have, of course, cards that might have 2 or even 3 8-pin PCI Express power connectors. Here now, one connector can provide that power directly to the graphics card. So there will be an actually adapter cable inside the box. Also, for our users right now that do currently have an ROG Thor series power supply, so maybe you bought like a 1200 watt Thor right now, or you even bought like a Thor 1000 watt V2. Those models, actually, we will be working with our service and support team. For North America, please be aware that if you're in another region, you want to contact service and support in your region to clarify in this regard. But for ASUS North America, we will be reserving essentially a buffer quantity so that users can contact us and we can actually get you sent out a cable. So ideally, if you then want to be able to match, having, of course, that latest generation connector to be able to go ahead and put on your power supply, then you'll be good to go. So kind of in either scenario, whether you have an ASUS power supply already and are going to be upgrading to a new 40 series based graphics card, or you have an ASUS 40 series graphics card, and of course you're going to be going to an older power supply, you should be covered in kind of either scenario. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and see if we have any other questions that might have come up right there. Let's see right here. So DJ is saying I'm more of a micro ATX and mini ATX kind of guy. Well, you know, if you're in that scenario, like I said, I would probably consider now what we're going to talk about, which is going to be for the 4080 base graphics card. So the 4080s, I'm going to kind of keep the same pictures up because they're pretty much going to follow the similar design. But what I am going to go ahead and do is clarify on some of the actual differences in terms of the dimensions for the graphics cards. So let me go ahead and bring up the dimensions here for each one of these respective cards, and we'll hopefully help to clarify that for you. For those that might be considering, like I said, maybe a little bit of a smaller, or I would probably say more of a medium form factor base build, right? Because you would still need a fairly reasonable size chassis, which, like I said, the AP201 that we have, take for instance, is a good example of that. So let's go ahead and now touch on the other cards right here within that lineup. So when we're taking a look here at the ROG Strix 4080, right, so that's going to be the 16 gigabyte. You're pretty much going to be mirroring a similar type of overall kind of ID design between those cards, so you're not going to really be kind of seeing too much of a difference in that regard, but you will have a difference in terms of the overall dimensions. So give me 1 second right here, and let me bring up the dimensions that I have right here. So dimensions actually for the 4080/16 should be pretty much identical. So again, that is going to be 3.5 slot and 357 millimeters, right? And then for the TUF Gaming 4080 16 gigabyte, you should also be looking pretty much at the same, which will be 3.65 slot and then 348 millimeters, right? But when we go ahead and we move over into the 12 gigabyte base SKU, so the ROG Strix RTX 4080 12 gig base model, that's where you're going to see a difference definitely within the dimensions. So for that card, you'll be looking at 3.15 slot, right, in terms of that, and then 336 millimeters, so a little bit over 13 inches in terms of length, right? So this card would just about fit in the AP201, right? The AP201, again, if somebody's kind of wondering here, let me see if I can bring up the AP201. The AP201 this is our kind of compact micro ATX base chassis, which can also fit mini ATX base builds, right? This chassis would be able to go ahead and accommodate essentially up to 338 millimeters. So it's going to be tight, but you would be able to go ahead and fit that within there. And the AP201 actually does come in both white and black. So you can actually get it in 2 different colors. And because of its high performance kind of airflow design, I think it actually would be a great choice for something like this. So there you go. So you've got the the AP201 if you're somebody that's interested in those smaller form factor builds, right? For the TUF Gaming graphics card on that 12 gigabyte side, we're going to be taking a look at a little bit larger, so 3.25 slot, and then definitely the shortest, the most compact card, which would be 305 millimeters long, so essentially about 12 inches. So this is probably going to be maybe the most Goldilocks card in terms of that you're going to be able to fit the majority of chassis, but you're still definitely going to a larger, thicker card, right? So a lot of the mini ITX chassis generally don't usually support more than a 3 slot card, so you definitely want to be able to double check and see if it can accommodate 3 slot plus. If it does accommodate 3 slot plus, then you would want to go ahead and check in terms of the corresponding length of the graphics card support and see if this one would work for you. Okay, and beyond that, of course, while we can't touch on that right now, we will continue, like always, to be able to work with, of course, industry partners in terms of water block support. So make sure to just keep it tuned for future announcements in that regard, right? So that overall kind of helps to recap where we at. So let's go ahead and just finish kind of taking a quick tour again of the overall kind of the design aesthetic and the features here. I'm going to see what other questions we might have kind of popped up in there for these cards. So again, here, let's just go ahead and take a little bit of a look at the cards. There, we got the front facade, we got the back plates. I think both of the back plates look really, really cool. I think I slightly favor the ROG Strix because I like that eye, and then I like that just that little bit of that lighting zone touch that gives it a little bit of flair. I think especially in that horizontal, when I have just a little bit of that view of the lighting, I think that's going to look pretty slick. But I really do love the vector design language right here, and I love this kind of cool cutout flare that's pretty nice. And let's round it out right there. Okay, very, very cool. Let's go ahead and just see if we got any other questions that kind of popped up in there. So Crazy Beatrice says that the backplate on the TUF Gaming graphics card has a really cool industrial style. I would definitely agree. I think it is a very cool overall style. Let me see. In terms of anything that would be an alternate color scheme, right now we don't have any details to provide, but like always, you know, I think we've had a pretty strong history in terms of offering different types of options, but nothing to disclose at this time. So as always, I would recommend just make sure to keep it tuned to our social channels and to ASUS channels to be able to find out what we may have coming in the future, right? Let's see here if there's anything else here. In terms of any channel availability, so some people are asking, will it be available at a specific e-tailer? Just make sure to follow us in terms of our social channels, especially if you're part of the PCDIY group. We'll have information regarding kind of channel availability, but we are a channel-wide partner, so that pretty much means that we attempt to kind of push out cards across any one of the partners that works with us to carry our products. So that includes like Newegg, Amazon, our ASUS store, you know, Micro Center, and many other partners, right? DJ says, is that between the Strix and the TUF, I always go TUF. Well, both of the cards are fantastic. You know, there are some people that really do like the ROG series because of certain design feature benefits, right? Whether it's the increased VRM, you know, design, right? The Fan Connect 2-based design, the superior thermal dissipation performance, right? And again, we'll definitely dive into all the exact differences, especially when it comes to performance, once we actually get to the embargo, when we can actually dive into all those specific differences, right? Mr. Matt Lee says the TUF got me thinking Noctua sizing. Yeah, I would say yes. So if anybody checked out any of our high-end kind of Noctua, the biggest Noctua card that we released was a 4.3 slot. So it's not unprecedented. If you kind of saw the Noctua-based graphics cards, you already saw that they were quite large. So definitely wasn't necessarily a surprise to see these type size-based graphics cards, right? Okay. All right. Well, overall, I think that probably wraps it up, unless I'm seeing any other questions that I think that I can go ahead and get into. No pricing, like I said, that I can get into at this point. Like I said, just make sure to keep it tuned. As we get closer to, of course, the embargo launch, we'll definitely be able to provide more information when it comes to that regard. And we'll also make sure to go ahead and give you all those kind of specific performance related details, along with, of course, I'd say some of the more technical details regarding kind of the power topology and other elements when we get to the actual embargo launch and we can dive into it. Scott's asking about the new PSU, which is our Loki. That's specifically going to be our SFX based PSU. So that actually potentially would be a good option because those will have native 16-pin power connectors in there. We will offer high wattage based configurations. The one thing you would want to keep in mind though is that while they're SFX based, you're going to be in that tricky scenario of whether or not that's going to kind of be complementary to a small form factor chassis that can actually accommodate these type of graphics cards. So we've designed the Loki not just for these cards, but actually for many current builders, because one of the big advantages of the Loki is also that it actually offers much quieter operation than what you traditionally see in many SFX based PSUs, right? Okay. All right. Well, very, very cool. ASUS going to redesign. So Fernando, I think asking about, I'm concerned about the accessibility for PCI slots. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but the reality is that most modern graphics cards, right, are generally right now about 3 slots in terms of what they occupy. So you generally already obstruct, you know, 1 or 2 slots that are already directly below that, or even sometimes actually accessibility for an M.2 slot. It's the reality of just the nature of, you know, when you're dealing with a high performance based design. These are things that we've attempted to kind of look and evaluate over the last few years, where we have certain boards that might have things like the DIMM.2 add-in card, which regardless of you installing a graphics card, you can still easily install an M.2 based SSD. And we do also try to attempt to kind of reprioritize certain slot layout configurations, but it is just the reality of sometimes what you have to deal with when you go to a larger, higher performance based card, especially when you're talking about wanting to keep a card cool and quiet, right? Okay. All right, I think that overall wraps up everything. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free and go ahead and tag me inside of our ASUS PCDI group. I'll be more than willing to be able to go ahead and jump into those things if I can. Let me go ahead and just see if I can drop in a link there for you guys in the group. And make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned, like I said, to our social media channels for more information for our 40 series based graphics cards, as well as if you got interest in terms of any of the new things that are going to be coming down the pipe, whether it's going to be from AMD or from Intel. Rest assured, we've got a lot coming on in the the next kind of coming days, coming weeks, and coming months. And also do keep in mind that I think especially one of the cool things about these next generation series graphics cards is that they're going to pair really well with, of course, a wide range of different monitor solutions. So we've got everything from our brand new ROG Swift OLED based monitors, right, 42 and 48 inches, to of course high refresh rate 1440p at 240 hertz with also an upcoming 360 hertz 1440p based display. We have of course ROG Swift 360 hertz and soon to be a 500 hertz based monitor, and many other monitors to really be able to be, I think, aligned with giving you the most flexibility that regardless of what you're interested in, whether you want to go with high resolution and max image quality, or whether you're talking about motion clarity and response, right, we've got a monitor that definitely would complement either one of these graphics cards, in the same way that we've got a robust power supply ecosystem. So if you're going to be pairing up with these cards, you want to be able to look for 1000 watt, 1200 watt, or even a 1600 watt power supply, we'll definitely have you covered. All right guys, with that, take care, take it easy. Thanks for joining us with our stream, and I'll see you on the next one.